G'day, it's Simon at Southwest Cars and Coffee. I'm with Jim, who is no stranger to Car of the Week. You've won it, you were saying 5 times?
5 times.
So many great cars he's won it for. You've won it for your Ford 34, I think it is.
34.
And then you've also won it for your
Jupiter.
Jupiter. So many different cars. This is not a Car of the Week, by the way. I'm confusing you. This is a Motorcycle of the Week. What is it, Jim?
It's a 1930 Scott Flying Squirrel.
Check this thing out. It's amazing. Jim, this is a super cool motorcycle. 1930 Scott Flying Squirrel. Tell me the story about it.
Well, they were first designed in 1909, and they built that same engine in a motorcycle up until 1970.
Wow.
When they finally quit. They won Isle of Man 2 times.
Wow.
And it was designed after a bicycle. The guy was supposed to design an engine that was different from anybody else's. So he decided that a bicycle was the most efficient. So he put the sprocket and flywheel in the center.
Ah, interesting.
And put pistons on the side, and it only has one main bearing in the middle.
Oh, really?
And the outside, the rod just comes out and the rod slides over the crankshaft.
Interesting.
With no main bearing on the outside.
Well,
and then it's adjusted by those aluminum plates right there.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, it doesn't look, when I first walked up, you told me last week you were going to bring it this week. When I first walked up and saw it on the back of your trailer, I knew what it was, but the first thing that caught my eye was, doesn't have fins for air cooling. Notice the hose coming out of the top, then notice the radiator. It's a water-cooled motor, which was so unusual for motorcycles right up until probably 20, 25, 30 years ago, right?
Especially starting in 1909.
Yeah, exactly.
The other really unusual thing is that right there is a double oil pump.
Right.
It has oil injection for the gas.
Well, yep.
And then the other oil pump is pressure lubricating the bearings on a 2-stroke engine. You ever heard of that? Yeah,
exactly. So for those of people who don't know what we're talking about, a traditional 2-stroke, effectively, in the older style, you would mix a 25-to-1 or a 50-to-1 oil to fuel ratio, obviously more fuel than oil. You'd put that in the gas tank, and then some other motorcycles had a separate tank. But the way that they would work is there aren't valves in a 2-stroke engine. It has an intake port and then the exhaust port. And basically what happens is, as the piston gets up to its top dead center position, it opens a port that's drawing the fuel and air mix into the crankcase. And it's that oil and fuel mix in the crankcase that typically on a 2-stroke will lubricate all the bearings and everything in the bottom end. And then when the piston comes down on its firing stroke, it opens up another port, and basically that air and fuel mix rushes into the top of the combustion chamber. And that's why it's a 2-stroke. It fires on every stroke, as opposed to a 4-stroke engine where you've got intake valves and exhaust valves, and you have a compression stroke and you have an exhaust stroke. So there's your 2-stroke history for the day. But what makes this difference is it actually has an oil pump pressure feeding the bearings like you would do on a 4-stroke motor.
Right, exactly, on a dry sump 4-stroke motor.
Insane that that's a dry sump. That's absolutely, I mean, that's so ahead of its time. So let's talk about Scott as a motorcycle company. Where were they headquartered? It says Shipley?
They started, Jowett designed these bikes and was going to be a partner with Jowett. And they're the company that built my Jupiter. Yeah,
so there we go. So that car that you can see right here is exactly what Jim has won Car of the Week for. He's got 3 of them now? Three of them. And a creamy colour one and a green one and a red one. And so they were the people partnering originally.
Well, that's why I had to have one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so they built 3 prototypes, and then they got in a legal battle with Scott. And on a technicality, Scott won the right to build them themselves. So then from 1910 on, Scott built these bikes all the way up till 1970.
That's amazing. Now, a couple of the other things you'll notice, on modern motorcycles, on the left-hand side, you've got a lever for your foot to change gears, and typically it'll be like 1 down and 3 up or 4 up, 5 up, depending on how many gears it has. This has the same as what the old Harleys had in the 1920s and 30s. It's a tank shifter or suicide shifter, which means your hand has to come off the handlebars to change gears. So if you didn't have naturally a good balance, and you took your hand off the steering wheel to change gears, and you were using too much force, you had a tendency of pulling to the left or pulling to the right. It wasn't a pretty thing.
No.
And what side is the throttle on this bike?
It's on this side.
On the right-hand side. And I noticed this, it looks like a hand throttle on there, but it also looks like on the other side, is that a timing advance and
yes,
retardant? So the reason they do that is with these old motors that didn't have an automatic advance on the timing system, you would mechanically advance or retard the timing. Old cars used to have that as well, old Model Ts and everything as well. So pretty interesting. Solid rear. It's a no spring on the back. The spring is for the seat, obviously.
Exactly.
And then just simple spring on the front. No shock absorbers or anything in these days.
Well, that's a shock absorber right there.
Oh, it is too. It's a torsion shock.
Yeah, on each side, and there's one up here for the steering.
Oh, that's interesting. So what we mean by torsion shock is actually the tension, almost like a torsion bar in suspension system doing the same thing. Mate, it is a very special motorcycle.
See, it's this right here, you move up and down to adjust the tension.
Oh, wow. So that was so ahead of its time. I love the old hand klaxon style horn up there. Right. It's just a wonderful, wonderful piece of equipment. Well, mate, as previously as our motorcycle of the week, when you get this Meguiar's complete kit, which includes the hot shine foam, quick interior detailer, perfect clarity glass cleaner, ultimate wash and wax, ceramic detailer, and the microfiber towel. It's a mouthful there. You get to keep this amazing 1930 Scott Flying Squirrel in the incredible condition it's in. Mate, thank you so much for sharing it with us, and congratulations.
All right, thank you.